Tini, Tanang Tangso Lagom Techi, Lagombati, Tini, Gombati, Teta Gomni, Pingio Mari, Lagombati, Yunbo, but the same Gomnetini, Gomba, my combine to Yunbo Gom Techi, Trinity, Jimatini, Semi Kakamema. Tini is a lot of song, the Tapa Lad, the Trinity about the New York, this and the not that way. Tini turns the not the Kagyu, but there Kashi, but there is Jonathan Dago.
So we are now engaging in the practice of deity yoga. In this context, it's important to visualize oneself as a deity, but not for a short period of time, but for a long period of time, again and again, to familiar the mind, while repeating also the mantra of the deity as much as one can. It may be 100 times or however many times one can. And it's important in this context that one develop a very acute sense of being indissociable from the deity, that there is no difference between oneself and the deity one is practicing.
Three Tibetan Luja Pacha Jonga, Luja Pacha, Naga Pacha, Yija Pacha, Pacha Sumne, Pacha, the said the picture of Taparori, Teletapi, Pachaja, Pachabana Jabjori. The Luja Pacha, the Luja Pacha, Lu, Nga, Chamadiri. The Choekyi young governor Nacho, the Pap, Jane, Secretary Pacha, Minatapa, Satirang, Nga, the Madriba, Yogore, Naga Pacha, Jonga, Nga Latinity, Zoom Tamatok, Nancher, Nagli, Viore. Dear Tamjility, some not a human but Jane Penna, made a catcher, Tabaga Gitachi, catcher, Konchok Gitachi, Nago, Nibachimbo Sakriore. Tell it in Naga Pacha, not de Basso. Luja Pacha, Naga Pacha, not Dava, Detonare.
So there are three types of imprints we want to depose. Karmic imprints we want to depose in our mind through this practice. They are the karmic imprints of body, of speech, and of mind. With the karmic imprints of body, we wish to transcend the limited body we have, the contaminated body we have, and to give rise eventually to the body of a deity. With the karmic imprints of speech we develop through visualizing our speech as a speech of a deity, our goal is to transcend, to overcome the four non-virtues of speech, which are lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and idle chatter or gossip, and to transform our speech into the speech of a fully enlightened being.
Oh, Trinity Tagona, Chulchun, Tricabo Chagarwa, or the same Topacha, the same was a Tongomari. Lunga is over Pacharati, the same the Kotopochade. Same Pachar, same the Koyang Botany, Carichella Chopa Chatamana Gichana, same the Pachada, Zulbo, Toro, Pachada, Doma, Pachama, Pachada, Trata, Topa.
So we have used frequently the term karmic imprints or predispositions. Now, what do we mean by this? Rinpoche says it's a little bit the same thing as, for instance, if you have a piece of clothing, a cloth, and the cloth falls in the mud, well, there are stains on the cloth, and these stains are like the karmic imprints on our mind. Now, these stains can only be cleared through repeated cleansing, not once but many times over. And this is the same for various material implements. Now, this is what we mean when we speak of karmic imprints. In this case, in the negative sense. There are also karmic imprints in the positive sense, which are the ones we're trying to implant through deity yoga.
Trinity Pacha Shibadi Lapa Yaga Pacha Toku, the Dandi, the Jimping Lord, you are take a Takiore. Tinipena Dada, Luja Pacha, Ranger, Sotu Luja Pacha Tana, Yinda, then Rang Sai by Shina, the Mitsama, Tinity, oh. Samaki Gypsy Roma Gomdeona, Soso Semna or Naga Semna Tapari Gypsy Roma Shakato, the Shadow, Naga Zupo, Marang Namanagi, you know, same the Tapara Gypsy Roma Nagi race or Hako. The Hako, oh, meet some shocking Yamichina, Korang Zuk the Kare, same the Gypsy Roma, Lakang Yamito, Same the time, Larry, some so money, but Tama didn't Larry as a Tahakorva. Oh, the little not on hard and Zogding name already. Zogdam not Gibo Yard or Shigdo, Giba Chad or Shido, Zogdi Mitaba, same the Tapare, same the Lakarigon, Tama, Lakarigon, Koto, same the Latin and Chadi, some of the Tama Miris of the Tipacha.
So when we speak of visualizing ourselves as Aryatara, clearly it is at the mental level we operate. The mind itself is permanent, it is not impermanent. We mean by that its continuum is infinite. The body, on the other hand, is impermanent. It ages, it decays, and it dies. So when we see others in front of us, irrespective of their body, it is important to learn to view them as not ordinary. In other words, whatever their physical appearance, we must think to ourselves, just as I myself in meditation am visualizing myself as a glorious Tara, and my mind as the mind of Tara, their mind also is actually of the nature of Tara.
Draga Pacha, Draga Pena, Mengatata, social message of Magni. Arrow, Tipin, and Gaman Konchok Japti. Konchok Japti, the Nabokoti, the young Willie. What did they kill Matopari? Eh? Matopari, Lamsang, similar the Drikung warrior. Kill somebody. Eh, okay, salty, Gayori. That Pacha, the Chadang Topat, the King Willie, till Draga Pacha, the take corner till the son of the Cintachakra, till Draga Pacha, the Ole.
Now, as to the karmic imprints due to sound, an instance, for instance, would be Rinpoche giving his name. Rinpoche's name, his name when he was a lay person, when it was called, in a flattering way, would immediately give rise to happiness within him. And this, on the other hand, when his name was called in an unflattering way, and people said, you so-and-so, you are up to no good, then immediately anger and irritation would arise in the mind. Now, this is the case for all of us. And these are the karmic imprints of sound, or due to sound.
Then it is a drug Pacha, the Samno Tangori. That's Zog Nantongri, meeting Tongu and these Zog the good Dimba Mare, Mount Palat, Mitapa and Dubzeri, Yomare, something. This Zog Nantongzi. Drazina, Konti, not a little lamna. Tete, Muponzi, Yomare. Konti, not Toparina, Nara Yapoina, Konti Topari, Kiyomare, nobody Yomare. Narang Topaina, Konti Yapori, the Kiyomare, coming on you. Konti Karela, Lap Dati, Payokana. Oh, two Yaporidina, Gaya Yomare, Topari, the Doga Yomare, Sempre Mazina, sent the Duke Yomare. You can't love la laughs on. Did it tina get it Dasama, Titi on Tari, Mamma, Datila, Pager, 3 cemeteries, and 3 quarter carry lamna, they saved the Duke Yomare, they'll drag Pacha, Nada, Datam, Harlanger, the daughter, the Nipena, Zoktam, Lalanger, Dra Harlanger, then it's a little you had sent the Madapa, sent this out that day, symptoms are.
So, in the same way as we try to perceive all phenomena, all visual phenomena, as the combination of appearance and emptiness, the appearance of the phenomenon and the emptiness of the phenomenon, in the same way, we should adopt this type of reflection for sound. Now, if we think of sounds appearing to our ear, at the instant when the sound is understood by the mental consciousness, that sound itself, because it's impermanent, has already ceased to exist. And whatever impact that sound has on our mind, actually that meaning is not inherent, is not part of the sound. So let's say, for instance, somebody says something quite offensive to us. Well, there is no reason for us to take offense because first, at the time we understand it, it has ceased to exist. The insulting term has ceased to exist. And secondly, these offensive sounds are not included within our mind stream. They cannot be part of our mind because they are not mind. So if they are not mind, how can they stain or affect our mind in any way? So through thinking like this, we will be able to reduce the impact of flattering or offensive sounds, words, on our mind stream, And we must train, just as we train to see all beings as manifestations of Tara, to perceive all sounds as the mantra of Tara, Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. And then we only see pure phenomenon and only hear pure sounds.
Tene tata zogda da yon pena lai ko tela pena me gipo gija lo chimbo ri domba topa chi se jipti roma gomde na o di me dong topa sa mare ko zogda topa ko nang semte jipti roma gomde ko ma pa jipti roma nang gi ro yo re samtene tene zogda ko sem ko zogda luge zog kaka chi ne luge zogde demba mare ole ti nang semte te na pena o chirang ngi tata o domba de chirang ge domba nang semte jipti roma cha de yo re sa kang te ha ko song chana ti midi zambore de yakore tokpare ti tawa yo marwa tokpa de zoma ro re nang semte thama ti la kari nyam song te ba ha ko song ti zog de da ji ga ti zba ta ro wa ti zba yo ma.
So, for instance, if we meet somebody, let's say a very old person with a very dirty face, very unkempt in his appearance, it is quite important to preserve pure appearance and to say to ourselves, irrespective of the physical appearance of this person, their mind is actually of the nature of Aryatara, and their mind will definitely in the future reach the state of Tarahood, of Buddhahood. And therefore, I will not judge them based on their appearance, whatever it may be. And we must therefore discard this very discriminating dualistic mind, which is always saying, this is good, this is bad, so-and-so is a nice person, so-and-so is absolutely ghastly, and instead view all beings as having this nature of Tara.
Tuni tera tine ta tata la musu gomde kashek tesa o nga jipti noma tine nga jipti noma ngune mare sabu yore te tomwa o nga jipti noma gomgu yore nga jipti noma ngune te mare yena mena te tom sabu yore te tom saje ya mare musu semgu yede chota amana yi sanji tamji ge semdang aso ge sem ye chikbarwa dombo chiktawe pena metodi tawa maraso ngaso semji tamshere te moya chira sangjere tene ngoso ge semde kare ngoso sanchok sem yiping lo me bare yiping lo me na tene ngoso roala mando yori ole tare yiping lo chi de semji tamje ge dong nga ke jipti ro mo gonggu yu samji jipti ro mo semdang ngaso ge sem chikba chikjang le o nga ge semde jipti ro mo chikba chikjang le pena 들이를 소치소도 하고는 오 말았지와 산촉서 삼hin기 요는 가 셉디 집디로 뭐 찍바래 나디 요는 가다 셈기래 이비로는 사제에서 되니 은혜 이 시제는 삼hin기 때니 집디로 막 없는 가 은혜 집디로 막 레서 소치소서 이 시제야 봐 뒤지게 거래 돼 라가 저나 은혜 삼hin기 요는 가 집디로 막 레서 들이 하고 봐.
So when we start practicing deity yoga, it is quite easy for the doubt to arise within our minds that after all we are not Aryatara. So we visualize ourselves as Tara, we think our mind is the mind of Tara, but actually there's a nagging part in our mind which says, yes, but you aren't after all. Now it's very important to eliminate this, and we eliminate this through the following lines of reasoning. As a matter of fact, despite the great difference in elevation of Tara's mind and my present mind, our two minds are exactly of one nature. The only difference between Aryatara's mind and my low mind lies in the fact that my mind is drawn downwards by self-cherishing, the mind which apprehends the self as inherently existent, whereas Aryatara's mind has been elevated by the mind which strives to benefit others. If I generate such a mind within my mind stream, if I generate the mind which wishes to benefit others within my mind stream, then I will become one with Aryatara. And therefore, based on these reasonings, we have to convince ourselves that it is legitimate for us to visualize ourselves as Aryatara and to think that our mind is one with Tara's mind here and now.
밑에 강화 이담 찌 드니 남이 제대로 산이 샘이 제야 매와 차나 산이 10일까지라더니 각각은 포화 제공을 말해. 강에들은 집지 로마랑 뒤는 다 시송나 저 심하다 샘디 집지 로마니 샘디라도 집지 로마 때문에 저 설로 돈도 다 찍게 줄은 포화다고 그냥 포화죠 포화고 말봐. 뭐랬지? 드니 포화도 찍바래. 될라 롱거 제도 송촉적 포화 롱주도 그 포화지는 제름 검지들이 롱거 검 포화지 포화 쓰면로 와. 죽고 검 포화 따와 검지 원미 따와 검지 롱거 검 포화 제름 검지 원래들이 쭉 포화들이 가야 미실 미치들이 포화 답들이 줘. 그네 포화 공고요. 또 포화 다들 롱고 포화지. 포화는 데도 찍발이 제름데 띵보 차는들이 빼 포화 고고 말해야지.
So, thanks to this very profound practice of deity yoga, irrespective of the yidam we practice, in this case it is Tara, there is then no need for power, because if at the time of death we visualize ourselves as Tara, then we are actually at the time of death practicing the power of the Sambhogakaya. In general, there are three types of power. There is a power of the Dharmakaya, in which at the time of death we meditate on the view, the power of the Sambhogakaya, which we just mentioned, and the power of the Nirmanakaya. But this practice substitutes itself to power in general.
다이 제름들 공부다 템포 용어로 다 나다와 다 니나 디 대부당 니니.
So to practice the generation stage correctly, you must do the various visualization of the mantra syllables, and you have at the end of your text some diagrams with these visualizations.
드니 농차는 드니 라비오디 좀 되면 또가 참여를 드니 콜로가 보잡제 봐 안디 제요 콜로가 보잡제 봐지 디 이바데 콜로 잡제 찍바 찍장래 드니 될 따다 나 이게 저거 콜로 빼서로데 bom보리 드니 은이 곰 콜로 은이 나지고는 나 될라 하가 유래다 하장 타고 세르게 탁반 타고 대나긴 타고도 고는 지금 콜로 은혜고는 콜로 잡제 거더니 너네 이게 고당 대래 빼나 원래 콜로 잡제 거더니 떼와라 이게 땀 니동차는 때 때는 이땀 집안에 드니 따다 보고 이게는 땀데 땀도 어디 제대로 땀도 따다 어디 제 많이 되래 땀도 어디 동동 어디 야랑은 땀도 따다 어디 제를 어디 정도와 드니지 너네 저 땀도 어디 강에 야랑디 요래 드니 이게 이다 땀지 어디 제는 랩제는 요래 곰땅 드니 때와라 땀지 드니 인도 고롱도 땅 이래 드니 보역도 인지 가리 곰는 그렇게 요래 빼나 드니 이게 디 당보 니바 당보 니바 이와 니 영어 설때 어디 예고기는 영어 설때 어디 로고 요래 밤마그 까까가가가 사디 숨겨데 영어 나는데 이게 어디 뛰나 어디 뛰디나 어디 용고진 로고 요래 이게 어디 설때나 어디 예고진 로고 요래 영어 카파티트 때 놓으면 다 이제 고절 때 섭도 때 상모 땅은 너무 골로 체세데 곰 드니 때 참마 곰들 때리 깔에 제총 또 드니 주도 땅빼 총총 곰들 때 곰들 골로 다고 어디 콜로나 얘도 코랑 들이 되잖아 드니 얘도 코랑 콜고만 콜로 소는 그거로 때와 콜고 말이 때와데 단테도 찍바래디 내 콜고 말 고 어디 온다래 뒤다래 소아리 콜고로
So, to do the visualization of the circles of mantras in the heart, you have a diagram. And whether you look at the Tibetan to the left or the English letters to the right, there is a similar problem. First, you have to visualize these letters as much smaller and much finer than they actually are represented here, and of the nature of light. Secondly, on your diagrams, both in English and in Tibetan, the letters are represented flat, lying down. Now, all of these letters are actually standing up. The tam in the center, for instance, is vertical. You have to imagine this as a plate on which letters have been projected. They all have to stand up, and they are all facing inwards. So as you see, some of them are facing outwards, some are facing inwards. They're all facing inwards towards your mind visualized in the tam, which is looking out to them. Moreover, you have to visualize these circles not merely as concentric circles, but as connecting with each other. It's a bit like a spiral moving inwards. And then if you do that, you have a correct visualization of these mantra circles at the heart.
Om ta re tu ta re te re so je drop je de kolo zep je na na kolo zep je de ri na de kolo zep je de ri de ji nang na de om ta re tu ta re te re so je ta re tu ta re te re so je ma so yo ma re om da ha ni an di kolo nang ma na ja so ro ba yi ko na ya ya re de di 다리 뚜다리들의 소재. 되니 지 바바텔라 다 양교록되니 에리 고디 용을 거나 제 보고 다당 되니 용고요래. 다차상 니 다의 시선을 되니 보역배 레라고 하고요. 와. 제 다든 되니 야 용거래. 되니 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 달라 레벨 되니 깨게 돌아 레벨 깨게 돌아 리 되니 오도 다 가는 다 레벨 와 되니 사지 숨겨대 다 빼는지 사지 숨겨대 깨게 돌아 용거리 되니 용거요 와 네 어디에는 영혼 낭는 뛰네 양자디 양의 이거 설팅들 어디 띵대로 설팅 이거 낭는 띵들이 용거를 어디 되거 가가가가나 짜차차자냐 짜차라다나 따타타다나 빠빠빠바마 야라라와 샤카사 학차지 자지 점체데 데디 고리 어디 고리들이 고리 어디네 콜로 콜소나 데니 콜람징이 용거를 놓고요. 이게 저 양람징이 예 거놓고요. 이걸 주도 요만 콜로 콜로 와. 네. 사지 예고 양용거를 예고 삼아 이게 뭐 살팅이잖아요. 배나. 사지데 영어 낭띠 되더니 근데 득디 인디비드 득자는 콜로 콜로 와. 콜로 콜로 다단 거기랑 이게 저 예를 좋고 저 용을 좋고 람징 콜로 와.
So, first we visualize at the very center of the circle of mantra sounds the letters of the mantra of Tara. Now, the mantra of Tara, Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soir, has 10 syllables. Of these 10 syllables, the syllable Ha is already included at the very center on the side of the syllable Tam. The syllable Swaha is not included in the letters or the syllables of the mantra. So we are left with 8 syllables which are disposed around the central Tam. Then around these syllables we dispose the vowels. These are the vowels, the traditional vowels of the Sanskrit alphabet. There are 16 such vowels. And between the traditional vowels of the Sanskrit alphabet and the traditional consonants of the Sanskrit alphabet, all possible sounds which can be produced by the human throat are represented. Now, the traditional vowels of the Sanskrit alphabet start with the vowel A, short A. And then you have long A, so A, then you have E, and you progress upwards in the area of pronunciation of the vowels in the esophagus until you reach the tip of the mouth. You then include, clockwise this time, the letters representing the various consonants. these start with the gutturals, ka, ka, ga, ga, ha, nga, and continue per category of consonants. These consonants are pronounced in various parts of the mouth, and the only difference between each of them is whether they are aspirated or not, high or low. So these are then represented clockwise around the initial circle of vowels.
Om ma ma a yu cha na pong ne po tem ko ha de om da ha ni ngani edi ko ko ina tini dina ta rang song da ga pa da pa da ma da ta rang ga kari yo ko tini rang ga di song da ga meng 이게 이용이 찍는 요 족발이야. 배는 가는 konchok 잠진 찍으러 konchok 잠진은 까지 이게 찍으면 요거 말이야. 미만 보고는 문제 이게 당보지. 되니 매일에 그 문제 이게 당보지 소소 족보 조모 다더니 요거나 되니 요거로 봐. 제가 저리더니 제가 엄마마 아이잖아 뻔히 버튼 거라 하더니 맹 다 소소하더니 맹야 조래 맹미나 이 소소가 맹잖아 조로 봐. Tini lama ke mengjana chogore, rangi lama sawe lama, tini gipsi tini mengkari yogona, yo chogore pena. Ya chana tini o mama ayi jana pune pune kora haa jesari. Tini kholi ti kholi tewa nama ti kholi tam kholi yo marwa. Tini di rinpa sama dila, rinpa chima dila. Om ye dharma he tong cha ba wa he tong te ke ta ge ta he yo we ta te ke ta yo ne ro da. E wan di ma ha sha ma na de yedar ta kholo sem chu de basum lo ba de ye kore de 이게 sar tin ni yedar yang ta sardi somchate chupu yung kore de homa de om mama ai jana te da che tare tu tare ni ite tsama yinkor, ye dharma ye korwa, jiklang yunkor, kaka kanka zi. Sarti sumchate yunkor re. Te tsama yinkor re.
So there is, of these various circles of mantra, only one which is counterclockwise, and that is these 16 vowels. All the other circles of mantras and letters are clockwise. Now, we have now completed 3, if you count the central mantra, 3 circles of mantras. The Tara mantra, the list of the vowels, which is counterclockwise, and the list of the 30 consonants, which is clockwise. After this, we have the long mantra of White Tara, which is put around the circle of consonants. And after this, we put the name mantra of oneself and of one's teacher. Now, if it is for oneself, we only visualize the first letter of our name. For instance, in Rinpoche's case, his name is Konchok. We would only put the first letter of that name, the Ka, whatever our name is. Then we put the name of our root teacher. And finally, in the outer circle, we put the so-called mantra of interdependent origination. Om Yadama Ketu Prabhava Ketunde, etc. All around the circle of mantras. Now, as we said earlier, all these circles of mantras are clockwise. In other words, they rotate to the right, with the exception of the circle of vowels, the 16 vowels, Sanskrit vowels, which is counterclockwise.
Trinity Holo Jepa, the 3 Taketa Robjong Chegore. Robjong Chegore. They don't do the Roger the Chepare. Gomje the Rizzo Pe Gom Kapa Dongla. Then young Dupa, the Gomju Yorva. Oh, they know ye. Tari to the swords. Then you know, Mama and the people to go. Holo Chong, there is a penna, Holo Chong Gomla, the Dupari. Then they young Peter Gom Kapa, then Dawa Chung, Dawa Chang called the Gomla. tini titengna tini tihol tam gom tam gathani tini ha khatang om tare tu re mama aya jana pune putam ko ha jena ha thama nyamde tini davatena gom or tam gathani tini drolchirwana ji ri chen tini tamla kora jana ha khorang khole mi da khogu mari ngapre ra bastom tini sosu kang gom thuna kang gom 당보 라워 곰 아니 뭐지 들은데 돈데 마시네 아니 갈래 곰 들이 곰 들지만 콜로 집아 곰나 배용 집으로 와 들이 갈래 곰 거래 돈도 하고 거로 와
So this is the extensive circle of mantras which has probably all put you into a state of shock, but you don't have to visualize this if you're not able to do it. There is an intermediate visualization and a simple visualization. In the intermediate visualization, you visualize at the center of the heart chakra a white moon disk within which stands an upright thumb, around which are the two mantras. Actually, the series of mantras represented on Rinpoche's piece of paper. Unfortunately, we don't have the intermediate visualization here. And the simple visualization, which is the simplest of all, is one where you visualize a white moon disk at the heart with the tam, and surrounding the tam the short mantra of Tara, Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Reswa, and the mantra of white Tara, Om Tare Tu Tare Mama Ayo Punya Jana Pushtin Kuruye Swaha, around it. Now, you visualize what is within the realm of your possibilities. The best is naturally to do the extensive visualization, which is much more powerful and beneficial. But it may be wise to build up to that. Start with the simpler ones, then perhaps get a photocopy from Rinpoche of the intermediate one, and finally do the extensive one which you have in your texts.
오래 드니 제일 변에 셔드다 저 주셔들 니마 오 잡는 테니 오즈 까르셀만 땡겨 오즈르테 자투나기 용거여 봐 오페테나 기더니 오즈 까르셀 마생 장 그랬더니 루차마 강네 오즈 그랬더니 나 콜로든 코로나 나한테 때 땀들이 이게 오즈 강 되니 루스로를 바쁘고 탐진더니 오즈 서로 통했더니 나까지 빌고 이 자블링디 했더니 어제 car sir man 탱 장 이 자송나기 거른들이 너들이 차대요 우사들이 드리고 디우 작을 다호 까보래 디선이 앞에 도박하는 동바 양세호 드리 바타 노래 세요와 이 작을 톡 드리 니나 버와 디 드리고 뭐래 돼 답지어지 그칸디 딱 뭐가는 니니 오추나 진짜 걸나기 차로요라 그래서 남과는 자총 고리 샤고라 어떻게 되지 자데 들이 많이 봤더니 들이 뭐하는지 차네 나는 가게 고도를 놈이 꼬파리 총총 저때요래 자총 진세 달로면도 자데 대요는 고도 되는지 대배지는 되잖아 나는 들이 고도 때요래 달로미도.
Then, from within the thumb in your very heart, which is extraordinarily brilliant, there's no light really you can imagine to be like it, you imagine that white light, yellow light, red light, green light, and blue light radiate, as well as purple light and lights of other colors. And these reach to the very limits of cyclic existence. They don't stop before that, and a series of concentric envelopes appear around you. Now, the Tibetan term for these is gurkang, a tent. So, in the first English translation, it was translated as a sphere, which is incorrect. Rinpoche says it's exactly in the shape of the container of his prayer wheel. In other words, there's a dome and there's a cylinder, and this is what you have to visualize around you. First one of these is white, then the second is yellow, then the third is red, the fourth is blue, the fifth is green, and the sixth is the color of, the sadhana actually says the color of liver, which is a particular type of purple. So you visualize these around you one after the other. They are all of the nature of light.
Pena tatang also Sinakana Tini, David Concheni Maratana, was doubling a sagang de Tini Gongan Rovazova. O Tiha Kosotan Lapsang doubling sagang de Tini Soti Dapojan, doubling Simki Tamji Jula, Tini Sam Hingi, Danzi Meva Chana, Tini Tama, Sam Hingi Chin, Tini Tama Jiti Roman Jiti, Chasum, Santri. Tatani Gom, Tini doubling sagang to Gom Chopara.
So we should therefore endeavor to repeatedly do these visualizations and pray for all the beings on this earth, that all the beings be established in the condition of white Tara.
Tini de gomne ta tambo jerum de gomyo jerum gomne tini jerum de yun bo gomne de ne tini ha khor de ma lo cha de ni ha khor de yun bo gomne tini sao cha tini ha khor de kale khor ta ho kale khor tini jo khor tini pe jo mek ma so ba lo khor na ji jo khor ta tini pa toni gomne tini chene saja che ta gomne tini rikpaati jo tamik chipo rikpaati ene tini sem maing bache tini hipa da tini thamta namto indamira mangbo yong na yang nga khor tela rikpaati ene nga khor te takpar sem te de na tini yang sem salor doko marwa o nga khor te sem salor mro che ta tini rwa nga khor pa je sun ang sem ka ji ka jong man jong ting yore o nga khor chipo rikpaati ene sem de khomba yo mara khorang takpar nga khor ta nyamdo dogo gore tini odale dare pe joko ori dogo re ni to sem mai pa che ta da gore
ni nako kasheta yeko duko nako kashe
mugo kholo khorang ga tang ha de so nga ku di tab tini ren cha ta ba na yi tini a e u re le o am a je ka ga ta ja di ku charwa ku chan kholo khorang khodo nga jido nga ya ja chore nga ta de ko pe kha bo yo wa kholo khorang di kholo khodo wa nga di de ya ren cha ja ba na yi ko la de ja na de ko de ya de do re de ya de do ro da lang ji do da dang ji do yo wa
nga treten ta kholo ki 태어난 거 요래
re
태어난 거 요래
nga de kholo zip ma chu sam no ro da
집게 요래
홀로 집je tela ndini ndina 이 섬들 타우 홀로 집je ngune tela 타우 요로와 ndini tata 이게 요 고지 스니 빼 갖고 와 다 지마 고는 홀로 ngune 고는 한 빼다 하장 충충 이게 충충 ndini 홀로 집je 딱 따라와 홀로 집je 공 때와 고요 말와 딱 홀로 딱 봐. 단 돼. 이제 봐. ndina ndini 다다 홍 Om mama ai jana pui patan karo ha de deni ko deni ta re tu ta re te re so de ko deni a e u re le e o am a de ko deni tisre ka nga ta ja nya ta da na ta na pa ma ya lo cha ka ha cha de ko e om ye dharma he ta ba he te ka ta na ka ha yo de te ke de no da ma cha ma na de ko cha de deni kholo 이게 닥터와 되니 콜로 코랑 레이팅 코로지 되니 얘도 같이 얘도 까까까가 아니 로요래 얘도 예코도 코도 이게 콘도 주도 제고 말해 콜로 코로래 단체에서만 어제때
So the explanation is quite complicated. There were some things to clarify. So the circle of mantras we have visualized all lie within the hub of an 8-spoked circle, of which you can see the spokes on the drawing here. You have 8 spokes which extend like this. Now, after visualizing as clearly as possible this circle of mantras within the very hub of the wheel, we will now make the wheel inside our heart rotate clockwise. The mantras, the syllables in other words, do not turn. They remain motionless, but the wheel is turning around them as quickly as we can make it rotate. And while we do this visualization, we do not allow our mind to stray to the outside. If it does, we bring it back to this whirling wheel at the center of our heart. This is very beneficial for the mind. So the key here is to have as clear a visualization as possible of the syllables, which are motionless in the hub of the wheel, in the center of the wheel, while the wheel itself is whirling as quickly as possible around them. So this was quite a difficult bit of explanation. Therefore, if you have any questions, or if you have written down any questions, this is the time to bring them forward.
Om tare tu re mama aye jana pung le putun kuru yeso ade. Detail 장가 되는 정말 같이 당첨을 뒤 장가 된 로요리. 이제 몇십 번이나 세워서가 배 다타 봄 달에 두달에 두레 마마 아여잖아 봄에 보통 거라 하지 소하지 되니 그도래라 나래래요. 이제 우리 저당디 범쪄를 봐. 범띠죠. 저래래는 범띠리다고 해. 디디 좀 쫓쳐요 말이야. 범띠리다고는 범띠 거들라. 엄따리 뒤따리 떨에 소하지. 나나 범띠리 찍었더니 엄마마 아유잖아. 뿐에 보통 걸 하지 되나. 이렇게 요래. 때문에 하루고 되나 이렇게 요래. 제 병 좋아해. 병 싫어.
So, how do we practice this? Well, the key to this practice is the repetition of the mantra. So if we are in a group, we can repeat the syllables slowly in a group. Or if we do this in the context of a retreat, normally it is said that to gain some realizations, one should repeat 100,000 repetitions of the mantra per syllable of the mantra. So the mantra of Tara has 10 syllables. Therefore, one should repeat the root mantra of Tara in retreat 1,000,000 times, or alternatively, one can repeat 100,000 times the mantra of white Tara. That is also legitimate. So whichever of the two one prefers. Tadiba chikchita yap dang yum ki trulpala Kyabjé Bena jetsundrama yum re remere tene papa chekazita yapre hava tene ta chitata samye kasheta yapre samye kashe yumre kepa ki gunse kere
yap dang yum ko cheba derive moto tata jikti ba ndi bakcha topale suni tene ko di 선홍 직디 남지 심지 탐지를 빼는 신동보에는 보모니 부서 보모니 들이 차요면 보다 보모니 이리 때나 난그 샘도 찍바래 내가 박차를 때는 샘을 보모요 말이 되나 라리 쳤던 보모 제발 치라요 말이 무슨 넘버 똑바로 때는 무슨 직디 가면 들자 심지 탐지를 보모니 차야 되는 들이 라한테도 얍염 들이 땡게 요래 문에 냠니 제라 라로 포모 제발 요말 porque 집지로마 곰난 이렇게 요래 보모가 찐에도 곰난 이렇게 요래 들이 같이 들이 또 봐요나 원래 포탑지 찐에도 그래서 보모 탐지 집지로마 그래서 아 들이지 곰나 양 이렇게 요러와 데 무슨 또 봐리면 문에디 살아 포모 요면 솔직히 샘을 때는 샘 코랑 포모 많은 강연 말이야 샘 이렇게 요 말와 샘 포모 많은 요 내가 박차를 때니 So the
question is, what differences are there between male and female emanations? Rinpoche says, really, Buddhas manifest either in the form of male emanations or in the form of female emanations for the benefit of beings which have particular karmic predispositions, which enable them to relate in an easier way to a male or in an easier way to a female. Buddhas themselves naturally are neither male nor female, and as to our mind has no gender. It is neither male nor female.
Oh, number namze. The lapa ye. 다다다 무서디 법뭐 니시에 그요래. 미치가 저로 차잖아. 예바 탑 용바 시랍을 라빠 예데 버 용도 보모 차대로와. 낭 셈을 차잖아. 뭐 나는 차 탑지 별에 야부차는 좋고요래. 나는 차 나와 탐지 별에 이제는 거 보여 말이야. 다다 미치는 다나 뭐지 거 톱요 말이야. 똥만이로와. 똥부 차대 염. 나차 얍 똥차 염. 내와 얍 똥바 염. 드리지를 다 라빠데 탑다 시랍들 탑 hin지 지보데 얍 시랍 똥만이데 염. 다 드리 다 부모 참아 똥만이 고요로 시랍 드리고 라빠 예반디 나발 남제 렌치 정도 아빠메 맵주바 동요주바 얍nga 데 데가리 다데 셈 토르 뉴모바 nga 요레 데고 속에 시랍게 선송의 뉴모바 nga데 식성나 데 자와를 nga 저도 띠달들이 서로 소모nga 근데 용바데들이 용nga 원래 디 익속마 디 산제지마 국가무 들이 로마 원래 들이 따지 용nga 들이 용nga 이제는 용nga 차대래 용왕아의 용왕이나 드니 그서 족본데라 거 야용아 아리들이 다다다 아리지나 내가 야용지나 다신 토종 왜 신토들라 사저 메롱 용왕아 창데 신토도 보고는 이로 남사 이거 부 신토들와 드니 내가 야용이는 드니 드니 내가 야용이는 드니 별로 좀 미더 법보모지라 뽑지요 빼대는지 사이 좀 내가 야용라 송네 드니 사이 좀 빠만 볼로 좀 답지 드니 배부로와.
So the question was, what finger represents what family of the Buddhas? So Rinpoche said in general, the right hand represents method and everything which is connected with method, such as, for instance, the development of bodhicitta, etc. The left hand represents wisdom, everything which is connected with emptiness, the understanding of emptiness and wisdom in general. Therefore, the right hand is the male aspect of phenomena and the development of the mind. The left hand is the female aspect. Now, as to the symbolism of the various fingers, the 5 fingers of the right hand represent the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. The 5 fingers of the left hand represent the 5 mothers as well as the 5 elements. The middle finger represents Vairochana. The index represents Akshobhya. The thumb represents Amitabha. The 4th finger, the ring finger, represents Ratnasambhava, and the little finger represents Amoghasiddhi. Regarding the fingers of the left hand, one of the fingers represents Gorachana, and I'm afraid the rest I've forgotten.
디 중앙아데 영아 가르리지나 디 남카디 인속마로와 남카 인속마 사드 상제지마 초드 마마키 메데 쿠카모 롱드 담색도마리 영아데 중앙아데 들이쳐 사초 메롱 남카디 따지네 디 남발 남제가 영르모 남낭 인속들이
So the 5 mothers of the left hand, which represent the 5 elements. So the middle finger represents the element of space. The
mamaki.
The index finger represents mamaki, which represents water.
Kukarmo, me.
The first finger represents Gokarmo, which represents fire.
Sanjechima.
The 4th finger represents the element earth. I'm afraid I don't know the Sanskrit. It's Sangyechikma. Her name is Sangye Chikma.
long tamsek dorma.
And the last finger represents the air element, Sītā Tārā, Damtsik Dolma in Tibet.
De taron che yore. 강에 되는 디 다다 추소가 디 자와르가 야가 염가 시전데 치를 때는 되는 용왕가다. 감가 디 용왕가 디 용왕가데 주포들라 용왕가 차가 요래. 샤 레진 샤사 차추주메 우복롱 샘 남카 디 차가 요래와 디 자와 강리데 자와 샘근을 다 쳤고는 샘근을 하고 거라. 생분은 하고는 생은 유몽가요라. 유몽가 나티 얌가라. 얌가나 빼는지 세당 띠몽 나반 함지. 띠몽도 똥반이 돈 고소나 나반 함지. 올해 야 세당 먹주바. 세당 먹주바나 몇달 받았다 가서 가려야 돼. 무슨 다다 세당은 다 초바자고요라. 세당도 동반이 참아 동반이 동하 고소더니 우미 따와라 소바게 우마라 sak진 독지 따와하 고소들 강 제가 말이야 고소랑나 강 제가 말 라로 요래 노차에나 라로지 영가도 동반이 나로 우미 따와지 영가 차들 빼는가 고소랑나 우미 따와 겁나 되니 고소게 네 밤에 와 차소네 다른가 야염 뭐주바다 마마께냐 저소네 다 유몽 20년 정도로 유몽 20년 정도 유몽을 또 매와 유몽을 또 매와 차서 들이다 양화의 유몽가나 영화의 용화가 동반이가 그랬더니 유몽 바테 탐제 동반이가 양 탑선했더니 이러가 야변은 저러서다 신송 유몽가의 동반이를 양 탑선을 이러가 야변 양화의 유몽 동화로 와 그 동반이 뭐 하고 속선을 야변 예미 차선을 디 유몽 20년 저러서라 유몽 동화 자와르가리 동화용마 영화도 동반이 나와.
So to elaborate a little bit on this explanation, Rinpoche says that whereas the 5 fingers of the left hand represent the 5 elements, which are in turn associated with bodily components such as the flesh, the vessels, the blood, etc., the 5 fingers of the right hand in their unpurified form represent the 5 delusions, which in the purified form become the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. For instance, the middling finger represents Vairochana, which is a purified form of ignorance, whereas the index finger represents Akshobhya, which is a purified form of anger. Now, Rinpoche says if he were to generate anger in his mind stream due to whatever inappropriate circumstances, then the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, which are represented by on the right hand, would manifest. Now, these 5 Dhyani Buddhas, when they are fused with these 5 fingers of the right hand, which represent the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, when they are fused, when they are connected with the 5 fingers of the left hand, which represent emptiness, lead us to completion. What is meant by this is that the delusions basically dissolve into emptiness. The anger, which is symbolized by the index finger, and which becomes Akshobhya, through connecting with the index finger of the left hand, which represents Mamaki, eventually this anger dissolves into emptiness, and this anger ceases to be a delusion and transforms into an enlightened being, in this case, Akshobhya.
Sir, Lapashi Majishira Yomare, what in the non same Shigore. Non same season, Lapashi Mashi Yomare, Lapashi Mashi Yomare, Teritata Kamachonga Misoja.
So we won't enter into further details on this because the 15 minutes have already elapsed. The most important thing Rinpoche says is the mind. It is not what finger symbolizes what.
Was that of the thing? Colo the Trinity, was there? Kadonga the Truatilla. Was that to the Hondig things in the top? The Tam Sevan in top Joroso. The Gangi dinner, Sanchok Semjo Wote, and I'm yinging Sanji Tamchek took you the lap, they were top. Tin Juan Agatin, such a man on Juan top Tamcher, I'm yinging cook. 원래 사족tempe用이거 처럼 용구를 소소라. 되는 것도 다다 최단 수남디 델릭 탐지 관련 종의 사족tempe 용구요래. 되니까 중앙당 발체 동해 탐지 관련 나디는 되는 유몽 동안에 제가 유몽 동안에 파 장송선나. 되니 유몽 동안에 파 다동선의 사족tempe 검선을 들이 함이 용디 탐지 예용이래. 될때니 어저 탐지 사제 탐지 고송토. 되니 이게 당하자 나타리 뚜따리 떨에서 하는 오왕홍텔라서 받았지 자절는 지들이 소소 먹어서 탐통삼 되니 공주 우리 건데 띵이스는도 지금 제왕은 된 족톱 저송.
Then we continue with the visualization of the emanation of light from the heart chakra of oneself, visualized as Tara, which has created the various consecutive tints. And this light basically extends to all the reaches of space and draws back the blessings of all of the Buddhas from the 3 times, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, as well as the blessings of all 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space. And all of the interfering forces to the interferences to our lifespan, to our health, all of these things are totally eliminated as these blessings enter our body. And this is the meaning of the line which reads in your text, whose brilliance gives rise to life, glory, strength, and the 4 activities.
어제 반참 리리브 갈 셀만 탱정 저기 어제 리리 반참 동바들은 양 메도 그강리 메도 어발 그강리 요래 대장 저는 자제가 거탐지 어제 때라 띠네 저는 오제 랩지 세발 돕지 저서 랩지 되더니 그 트레저에 가면 되나 시와 내동 동에 같이 뭔가 소탐지 팔에 시와 어제 까보 아네 드니 체당 소나 이시 윤딩 삼체 제발세 어제 실보 아네 드니 랑기 롱셈도 랑기 셈나 뉴모바다 넘버2 바탐식 네빠메와 제tam죠 왕도 두고 요래 서리더니 이제 동중보텔 로파타와 삼죠 왕도 전에 본조를 대봐요 봐 어제 말고 시제 왕다 그 트레이 제더니 어제 가도 나가를 때니 레비적에 습지 탐지라 트레이 제더 듣고 요래.
So the 2 lines at the end of page 10 of my text read, our newly opened Utpala flowers, whose brilliance give rise to life, glory, strength, and the 4 activities. Now the Utpala flowers which are visualized here are flowers which have freshly blossomed. And the 4 activities which are being alluded to are the activities of pacifying, which is represented by the white light which is emanated from the body, specifically pacifying suffering and physical problems as well as mental problems. Then the activity of increasing, which is symbolized by yellow light. This activity of increasing is an increase in one's lifespan and one's merit. Then the activity of control or domination, which is symbolized by red light. This is a control of the obstructing forces. And finally, the activities of destruction or annihilation, which is symbolized by a dark blue light. This is the complete destruction of all hindrances. These 4 lights, therefore, are emanated.
The one Chilean, the one Chilean, one do the penna, so gave me Mantumba Mambo Yuna, solo Nepatang Mambo Yuna, Tapa, control Saba gum, some Hiji gum, control Pamachi or control park control changing, after the bottom of Gypsy Domanga, Dana, control Mewachi, control Toponology Changuri, Gypsy Domalasovata, one trade, one to do, so one to do the social Ziwa Changuri, or Langman Tuba, that in the Tapa Gypsy Domarang, trees over top. One trade. Then he ran like the Jumbo Mamma G, Megamatoma, you can not up to me. The bottom, young theatre part or Tapuchele. She did one like show a jibba, one tapodi, 레비 세발 돕지 저도 틀에 이제 거는 나그 세상 빠르든 이시 용띠 이시 담지 제가 요리다다 나 접지도 나디라.
So the third activity, which is the activities of power, or as we translated them, control and domination, these are activities whereby, among others, as Rinpoche says, when within the minds of others anger or irritation arises within us, towards us, this anger or irritation can be transformed into love and can be dispelled. So this is one of the manifestations of the third of the fourth activities. Generally speaking, all four activities, pacifying, increasing, controlling, and destroying, are activities to pacify, increase, control, and destroy, the interferences in general which arise towards us from other beings, and to increase the love of other beings for us.
피용 망보 송고 요래. 저는 같이 다 치고 받은 피용 거 요래. 지단 씀 이제 담신에 야 보여래. 남봉 하나씩 봐도 닌 청화. 청화서는 봐서 맛을 찌려 좀 배다 아침나 줘야 되나? 저는 그 청화. 라파 니마 다와 니 발랐잖네. 되니까 돈이 된 행진이래. 스탄 행진이 있잖아. 저는 청마한테 메도 청와는 절송상 메도 오빠는 청와들이 제시 못들이 절송상 저는 하르레 되는 하르레 라레를 jon도 집지도 마르레를 메도 오빠는 메도 레레 퍼는 들이 제가 저는 하르레 온따레 뚜따레 소화되는 집지도 먹고 레레 좀도 반상감나 어들이 되게 sem비 탐게 핀바다 되와 동두고요 그다음 하르레 지들 라섭게 하디 바탐게 라 좀도요 봐 변호래 보지와는 이제 사람도 사르시바지 사르레를 메토레를 보고 사는 메토 통하는 줄 그래.
So regarding the blessing of the rosary, Rinpoche says, as he represented it, you take your rosary between your two hands, and the two hands represent respectively the sun and the moon. In other words, they represent respectively emptiness and bodhicitta. And the rosary is blessed by the contact of this, and you recite the mantra for blessing the rosary, Vasumati Shriya Svaha. And then when you recite the mantra of Tara on your rosary, you visualize each time you recite one mantra that this mantra becomes a deity which emanates from your mouth and goes through the reaches of space and blesses all beings, making offerings and helping them as best it can. And therefore, each of the beads of the rosary first becomes a flower, and from this flower emanates a Tara, which leaves from your mouth and blesses all beings. This is the way we bless the rosary and then visualize the mantra in this practice.
근데 나 나와는 거서 미게 맹리 비바나 이쪽 바래. 변나 저런 거 맹리 저거 부르나? 이제 남산 제리 폰래나? 알로 라고 봐. 배때는 제리 폰 줘봐라 이제. 라고 딱발 고요리. 지금 들이 내려들이 라마고 배우는 변나. 소주 세배되나 라지 레벨은 세배되나 레벨 거요래. 세배되나 레벨 따라 가려 요리는 딱발 라지 되는 하지 되는 선바 지부 선바 시와 대와 들이 차용 거요래. 대 강리들 라그 제와 지부 요래 될래구나. 샘 대와 장들이 샘 싸워. 될래가 가르치는 들이 변 시랍 제보 용거 요래. 들이 컨트롤랑나 컨트롤 뉴모 바탐지 때에서 촉촉촉. 들이 시랍지 치를 손을 들이 뉴모 바탐지 쫑이 막 시기 요래 봐. 쫑이 마시 컨트롤은 치랑 컨트롤 쪽 말이지. 차도는 치라고 말이다. 이 뒤지 시랍지 촉치 뭐 차오나 들이 메티 라왕라고 톱 용거 요래. 시라고 라왕 톱나? 들이 라르버 따라 들이 삐 제와 치보 습지 탐지라. 참아 야고 제고리 제 참아지. 들이 라빠르 제와 강을 제거리나. 무소 냠니 제 미시바 레좀제 미시바 올레 따와로 뽀베 땅고서 잡을는 주력도 약보 말에 들이 따와는 들이 코페 코바 차노라. 어디에 담질 제와죠. 들이 따와는 코초랑이 방고요래. 코초 양자리 신의 샘시지 요 말에 양자리 제와는 거 제와는 제와 똑바 들리 그러와. 레좀제 마시나 ngaso nimge shin tata jiwa del kange te sa uno mangba jiwa ya ro yo ri bena jiwa chera ma wo so to bo ri mo so shi so lo to bo yo ri la go to bo yo ro ba de ole jipje ro ma ne tini tin ko to jiwa ning ji ji zo ning ji ji le de ha la chi ba de tini sa ma bo se bin na pe mo yo re.
So what is the reason of the efficacy of the repetition of the mantra? And if we think of it in our daily lives, when somebody calls our name, we perk up and we say, oh yes, yes, what can I do for you? We recognize the name. In the same way, when the mantra is repeated, it's as if we are calling upon this manifestation of the Buddha. And as we call upon it, these Buddhas enter into us and they purify our mind streams. Specifically, they increase the level of love within our mind stream, and this in turn reduces self-attachment, hatred, anger, and envy. So then when such delusions as anger, hatred, or envy arise, we can just dispel them immediately and, as it were, put them to rest. So this is how the mantra functions in this way.
nga saje tamchil chupa phogona nga mangbo de ni jipti no ma chichi baba mangbo de na nga re de jipti no ma chi mangbo yong go yore de tamchi ke ti sobji shaka tamje la tamje le ti me do do pun zambeling ge ni zuda ro ri da ka chupa chama jipti no ma mangbo to ne sobji shaka tamje chupa phar de jipti no ma ke yang so de ngudup go na ti jipti no ma ga la tamje thukje se lam no to tamje jipti no ma kun cholum le jipti no ma rang la tan nga ngudup de shi ba je.
So then we visualize many tens of thousands of Aryataras emanating from our mouths as we recite the mantra of Tara, and they go to the furthest reaches of space and make vast offerings of flower, of incense, of water, and of all the precious things we can imagine to all the Buddhas and all the beings. And then after emanating them, after practicing, as Rinpoche says, the wisdom of emanation, we then practice the wisdom of resorption, the wisdom of absorption, and we absorb them back within us.
Teni soto ke jipti numa nga jik teni jipti numa jik teli kyo, teli ja, teli tong teni jipti numa pe mangpo cha ne teni rowa rado simki tamche na teni jipti numa ke teni pe me na pe, topo me na topo, kala me na kala, pesha me na pesha ta tsama rokpa ja ke yo san teni towa sem na teni simki tamche dongi ke tsawa danjin re simki tsama yu re tsewa chenpo che yo de jipti numa tsewa de konchok ra top yo re si soto ke tsewa chenpo che na nga drikung de shiba de ta tendi shina de sare de yida mangbo yore de go mane ta kale kale shina de wa nga sar shiba nga chupar shiba nga salhabi shiba nga drikung de shiba de ye.
So then we visualize as we are reciting the mantras of Tara, with each mantra, one Tara emanates from our mouth, and this one Tara immediately subdivides into 10 Taras, which itself subdivides into 10, and thus thousands of Taras emanate from one Tara, and they go to the furthest reaches of the universe and give all beings what they specifically need. They give to those without clothes, clothes, they give to those without food, food, they give to those without money, money. And these are therefore the activities we perform through the Taras. Now, there are specifically 4 wisdoms connected with the practice of this mantra and of mantra in general. Rinpoche said he would not enter in detail into them at this point.
Davyang la soba, dabdin kolo te la soba na tangda, te semdi namto yinda yo mare, semdi tsangma cha angkor, semdi tsangma yun kache rinpo cha na, te gong na, semdi rangsok topa, shirab tsangma ya shok yo pa yung, pa me pa yung na, pa yo pa yung, shirab yung na nyingje yo re, kangre zina, ramji ke tsewa yo re, koso, mege shirab chena, shirab me pa tamchira, pe ramji ke nyingje che kare, ole. 티 시라메나 빼는더니 남기라고 파마라더니 바다를 맞아라 찌와요 말에 시라비 오타는 심지 창말을 남장 찌와찌 그래 찌와찌는 찌면서 수요놈 남기 그랬더니 고 조금만 보차 되네 요요로 봐. 가 준이도 시바 송가 이제 샘장마서 그랬더니 나가 자당 라이팅 라이살랑당 가 이제 되는더니 샘장마 차고 또 치 초공 그룹 다 되와 초공 그룹 샘장마 차고 그래. 토몽공 그룹 레비게
So then we continue with this process of emanation and resorption, emanating taras from our mind and resorbing them. And we continue this throughout the extension of our mental continuum, as long as our mental continuum exists. Now, generally speaking, we should try to develop both wisdom and compassion within our minds. However, even if it is difficult for us to develop wisdom, at least we should have compassion. Because without compassion, which is the basis of love, then the affection, for instance, of a mother for her child ceases to exist. There is no such thing anymore. Therefore, that really has to be the foundation. And then on that basis, through developing wisdom, we understand the necessity of extending our love to all beings.
옴따리 뚜따리 떠레 집진 화마로마 마마제나 나제레 드니 나제나 드니 베는디 디탈로 마마제나 마심기 탐지 삼나데 저거래 원래 파마마데와 제저요 말에 아여제나 체릉보지 부인네제나 자나제나 이시 시랍 진보 아여 자나제니 시랍 부인네제나 소남 뿌름들이 망보저더니 집진 도명을 때호 저더니 나 동태래.
So then we recite the mantra of White Tara, Tara Mama Ayopunyajnana Pushtin Guruswa, and the meaning of the various syllables are as follow. We have the first syllables which come directly from the root mantra of Tara, and then Mama means I or mine in Sanskrit. Ayurjnana, Jnana means wisdom. Punye refers to merit, and Pushtim refers to the life force, Kuruswaha. So we are requesting an increase in wisdom, merit, and life force.
드니 당하 내 차원 적도 드리변아 라고도 버티 드는데 드리 고고만이 남이 따방하나 파야라 드니 수사 집진로마 예 삼드니 디 하가 용리 드니 수도건디 집진로마 또 집진로마 연발라 드니 남카카라 사지에 상속 선바탐제 양 수업스 드니 펩조사 드니 텔라드니 또마 어디 또마디 내리 총총는 드니 또마 짱마테 타뇽뇽조나 드니 텔페 망고 드니 페 남카카와 스노 죽디나 심지 탐지 드니들이 정보 탐지 남카카와 라데 조반바코요사 이 샵들은 그 때단들이 잠난데 그래 세부들이 참만 죽디 칸로 제 탐지 드니 심보 나무 올레다 가도 빼 약보 드니 사는 심보 제라서 봐 이때가 소수 강의를 용어 되고 보태 탐지더니 렌신도 또만 또는 신도도 또만은 내용이 좀 된데만 벌지 그 또만 버리지 나카가를 되니 집지로만 뭐 지인지는 올레 집지로만 코다지 발 또만 그 집지로 또만이 이나 사탐지 되니 샤니 어저가 뭐 톡톡 콕는 봤더니 그 이차례 빼는 제가 가서 그냥 양 사고 요거 말이
So after the recitation of the mantra of White Tara, we engage in the practice of offering the torma. The torma are these special cakes which are offered in the Tibetan tradition, made of tsampa and butter. Now these tormas are offered to Aryatara and to all her entourage. They are visualized in front of us, and we have actually a physical torma as a support, which should be the tastiest torma we can possibly make, with sugar, molasses, butter, a very nice shape and a very nice color. And we visualize that this simple torma is magnified many thousands of times, and we offer it in turn to Aryatara and to her entourage of deities. And from their tongues, beams of white light appear, and they go into the torma, and they taste the torma, and it generates great delight within their mind and sates them completely.
Chitan Hala Chopan Brava Tri, Nacho million so Kalatra, Sago, Kalatra, Sago. They almost last time to take up the hammer, go Jatuna unity. Nacho dancing, Nacho did the big color Chapayori. They attempted dancing, she was said, the Hala Puna, the Mount Pala, the Pinu, Yunti, Carrera dinner. Did it dancing me what Mount by young Chachiwa Lana. The Raga Kajusuna Kala Kangemeva, Ramji top tapa, or the new Pinu or Neck up to the wrong. Chapa the Shimba Meva, the Naga Satan, Konchok and Chu, some. The Nadi may be going to Sana, Joe Maripena. Nadi the Yo Mari, the Pinu ni, top of your neck up and tatok ni, like Chopa permanently.
So, in general, when we offer the tormas, we have to keep in mind that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, being immaterial, have absolutely no need for food or offerings of food. But the offering of the torma is designed to counter our strong attachment to self, and specifically our strong attachment to food, to which we are very strongly attached. Fundamentally, when we offer torma, there are two benefits. There is a short-term or temporary benefit, and there's a long-term benefit. The short-term benefit is that we will never lack food in future lives, and obstructions will be dispelled. The long-term benefit is that in so doing we are generating the merit to attain the ultimate condition.
Trinity Pernetini, so the Munam Karajago, the Munam Jaja Kitchenbore, Pardi Lama Cote Jatin Jet, Pardi Lama Karacha, Pardi Latini Pena, Rado Latini, Sancho 7 watch Julie J. De Valatini, Jindo, that Pija Chimboto, Penatini, Tali Lamana, Zabil Shirapting, and Miss Hamjali, Shell Sim Shawa Deva, she dig a lamting to your dinner, Ole. Dear Tabagatini, give it in Chimbo Am. They will Lomba Sosola young Metziachi. Oh, Lobatella Pinio. I love that Chimbo Johnny Loma del Pindoni, Namba Yena Mina, the Nipena. Leka among the Pimpa that they will leka Chini Chibo or what dear time among the Pimpa they were Chini, some much in Italy, Ole. Saji and took some trupa, J. Koto. Didn't go to Namba Saji, but then Sancho was same till Mendo Koyore Pena. Ole. Munita Chiwa Namba, Ramada Shake Yore. Chiwa Namba Chepati, so Silataya Yomare Pena. Namba didn't got on Namba Jina. Nangan say number not always Zingham Chunity. Namba Nanga same Zambo Meva. Lekatopa Chini come, my boy, or what, eh? Muni Namba Marva. Ya Namba Maiba Nana, Koto Mimang Pinsim Chimbo, slow to low Namba Main, the same good. Simply Robda Chimbo, Minkan Jakap de la Pimba, Shibdi, Lekachini, Pintani, Mango Yore, or Pesha Mamboji take some of the Pimba that they were doing. Muni the number the Sancho same. Mimang simply Tiwa on a tea Namba Repena. Sancho same watches, Saji Temba Kang, something just Ayori. Then he Sami Namba de Nambachiwa Kanata, Saji Tokyo. Saji the same song, the same the only Saji Joyori, Saji Mitika Yomava. Tama Sangi Joy, Tama Nambarite. Nasawai, Nana, Nachi, Many the Koto, so Dadi Lakoyo, don't read it. Nambashi Sanji Mangtako, Sanji the same song. Tama Sanji, same minute I do Sanji Yomava. Namely to Sanji and Rosa Yomava, not number solo lodging Rosa Yoma Koso, Kubarva. There is Sula Sancho sound a day, Terimbo, day, or Pache Meva.
So in our prayer after offering torma, we have a specific prayer which Rinpoche says is extremely important. It reads in your text, thus cause the lifespan of the glorious gurus and the victor's teachings to flourish, and as a result cause the lives of patrons and all migrating beings to increase. Now, the term glorious gurus here refers to a very specific type of being. Glorious refers to beings who have vast deeds, such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who teaches wisdom to the entire world. In other words, it refers to beings who have actually generated bodhicitta within their mind stream. Rinpoche says, as a matter of fact, we misuse frequently the term Buddhist in our practice. The Tibetan term for Buddhist is Nangpa. Nangpa means an insider. Now, inside of what? What is the actual meaning of this term? This term alludes to the fact that being a Buddhist is not a matter of external observances, but it's a matter of development of the mind. And what development of the mind are we talking about? We're talking about a development of the mind which aims to benefit others, specifically the generation of bodhicitta. Now, while there are many Buddhists, so-called Buddhists, in the West and in the East, who have the exterior garb of Buddhists, many of these people do nothing for others. They do not help others, and actually they are troublemakers. They create difficulties. Such people are not worthy of the name Buddhist, the name insider. On the other side, there are many people who are non-Buddhists, who are from other religions, or who have no religion at all, who build hospitals, who build schools, who spend their lives helping others. These are true Buddhists, because these are those who give great value to the welfare of others. Fundamentally, Rinpoche points out, the term insider indicates that the development of a Buddhist is a mental development. Now, all the beings who surround us have minds. So it's ridiculous to praise oneself by saying, I am a Buddhist, quote unquote, and he is not. The question we should ask is whether people have or not this mind which enables them to benefit others.
Tenpei jimda Drikung sempen so ta te tawe gewe shingi chenpo mamang la pimpa da dewa dribni te maze te tang mamang la pimpa dewa dribtuni ole ta simchin la pin dokro ni jimba tang ni ta pen la dile kala teni kanga jokso che ko ni te tamche la ole che la parche mewa di che la parche mewa de gang ni de tu mai ba chwa shije mewa che ko mare tu mai ba chwa de pen so so 모다한다 답자다 매당 초당 롱당 종화가 노바 대라서 봐 두만이 붙여야 되는 바체가 싫어고 대매와 올해 바체가 두만이 붙여면 빨리 좁 두만이 붙여면 빨리 좁나 드니 대라 뛰니 고소디 생분대로 또 소나 생분데 시점에와 동대 생분대로 마도나 하고 말이 다다 미리 시송아요 생포를 시제 요마데 하고 오머니 바도를 찌에서는 니마레를 턱마보 쉬고 쉬었던가 찍장 망도 로요리 드니 사족 sem을 보지 유일제로 오 생포는 시제 메와 쉬어야지 드는 출바에 봐 전상 그러 물람 따위지 봐 드니 하고 요러와 어디서 드니 뒤에는 드니 차와메 동도 어제 차와메 봐 채라 오머를 빠져 봐지 생분대로 하고는 sem도 시제 메와 드니 라톡톡고 요래 드니 저와던 고바들이 로아를 놓더니 몰람다고 하고 요리 대대서 생구대로 사족 생을 보지 줄을 찌라더니 은혜 저와 매봤다 저 하고 오라 얘네 다다 내갑들이 두 많이 배쳐가지고 빨리 좀 제가 제요는 탈수인고서 받게 매봐 대점.
So when we pray in this praise or this prayer that the lifespan of the glorious patrons and of the glorious gurus be extended, there is a temporary and or a short term and a long term meaning. Now in the short term, what we are referring to are interferences to the lives of the great teachers Rinpoche talked about earlier due to exterior influences such as cars, etc. But what we are actually, and we would like their lives to extend indefinitely, but what we are actually referring to in the long term is that the uncreated mind which they have generated, this mind of bodhicitta, both temporary and ultimate, abide eternally, and that any interferences to this be eliminated. So this is the meaning of these two lines of prayer after the Toma offering, which are quite profound.
단지 그소 초사발하다 면달지 괜히 변하다 이 면달지는 이 늦게 면달 포도 그것이 다 답을링게 그수 사강디나 다 니때문에 답을링게 사강디 삐 살짝 뭐 탕나지 되니 나쁜 털나지 올해 네 마블라 소바 메바더니 메도 고유 종능지티 메도 생당 유신 되라고 썸지 잡았더니 드리 찔 곰르더니 뒤지 올랐더니 이제 메다 폰소 고베셔서 드니 대다 자다 무슨 메다 버코는 릉지 다 대다 rap당 제바 다 드니 냠도 릉지 랍 뒤땡더니 집진 로마 그더니 메도 침보 따나도 얻은 바로다서 아티들이 메도 침보 뜨나 대다 집진 로마 거 침보 드리지 다들이 뭐고 다도 초사부 타버라 초사바들이.
So after this we offer the mandala. When we offer the mandala to Tara, we offer everything which is pure and beautiful in this world of ours, all of the trees, the flowers, the beautiful rivers, the fields, and specifically we offer Mount Meru, which is visualized in the center, the 4 continents in the 4 directions, the 8 subcontinents. All of these things which are pure we offer to Tara, and we also offer vast Udumvara flowers, which are a flower which is particularly associated with Tara.
될 적당 무슨디 초정 고법감이 초정 이따고 곰나 드린디 이제 탐제 또는 사제도 좀 많아서 매바한데 쓰마다 좀 땅처럼 좀 마블 싸워니 매왔더니 통영보들이 나쁜 천나기들이 곰고로 와. 비 양보 대화 지시고 나지들이 곰을 뒤등나더니 다 접지도 먹고 비 침부 나고 감가와 뭐다들 따나도 어떤 발부터 근데 좀 뒤에만 집에서 말다 되지 다들이라게 째름 공부티 나지 탄거 거대 빼나 다는 과거를 그 침부 원래 나고 다도 냐마들이 제보 곰 하더니 뒤에 사직 진도 사회 조기 저거 됐다워리 내 책도 나기 말이다 저시다고 말와 들이지도 먹고 싸고 다들 공부를 비 생각더니 막좀 네 적당 다니 맥점 총총 차러와 무슨 맥라면 맥데 다다 친레가 다나 빠치에서 찍바래스 맥데 아니 맥 거다들 샘 남도 마오면 맥이 때데 남사 참이야나 할람사 샤용거리 드리테페 사워진데 맥데 빠치에서 찍바래 다다 친레가 하고 그러와 친레게 가래라고도 되나디 나게 담배시 걸어 봐. 이 뭐마 꼬마게 미세로 미세 소니 하고 말아. 시 메티 샤메 메케디 때 시송아. 꼬마한테 수이 메케는 딱딱 샤도. 하고래. 소니 여러 메시니티. 코 메케때서 시송아 디 빠는 미신 그 설랑는 밑에 샤도 없었다. 지르가 하고서 비 되는 우치 먹대 빠치치 바래. 들다 째는 거 대하고서는 랍상 싸웠대. 들이 먹던 오 빠치나 이거 먹대 빠치나 이제 빨랑 차요래 돼. 이 세비들 빨 잡여라. 데 먹는 샤들 먹대 빠치치 바. 들이 띠보지 랍상 샤용 거로 와. 들이 거 충충 다 샤도는 들이 생부 치러 또 갈래 치러 또 빼 남과는 이당 좋으래. 생부 갈래도 충충 땅 하정 충충 다른 하고 충충 되는 하정 충충 생부 좋다고 와. 라베 좋고 말이야. 제 검선은 땅 끝이 뭐니 강바다는 그 충충 들이 chepo samjana kangpa martin kangpa samjana jagarno pe chepo zo chokore chomchong to tam tin rawang yore te ha ko gorwa te kon tin jepji lu ko chepo ta tin samne tin kon le la yorwa.
So we offer the mandala to the field of accumulation of merit. Now if we can do an elaborate visualization of the field of accumulation of merit, such as the one on the tanka behind Rinpoche, then this is excellent. If we cannot do such an elaborate visualization, then a simpler visualization with the main deity is appropriate. Rinpoche points out that the goal of this practice is to eliminate interferences. Now, he says that there are some interesting discoveries by scientists which seem to indicate that the brutal interruption of the I consciousness, or the stream of consciousness linked to the I, can lead to the remnants, to the remaining in the I of traces of what was experienced. And there is a story from Tibet of a man who was murdered by a thief when his eyes were wide open, and it seems that the impression of what happened remained on the retina in the back of the eye. Now, Rinpoche points out that while this refers specifically to obstructions, in other words, the interruption of something such as the stream of visual consciousness, we can also think about the fact that fundamentally, when we are visualizing something like the field of merit, because of the power of the mind, we can make it as small or as big as we want. Likewise, the mind itself can be either as small as we want, we can make it basically invisible, or we can extend it to the whole reaches of space. So the goal we should have in our practice is to try to make our mind as vast as possible.
Tani 동원 고나 가리 고려야 되는 konchok 집지도 뭐 꺼발았다. tani lo ngoni 싸웠다. tani 맥참 tani 노바 로고 말 집지도 뭐 꺼발았다. tani 맥참 양당양도 tani 에샤다 때 공고를 봐. tani kom나 산이 좋게는 양양 짧다나 tani 람상 샤용을 봐. 샤용화 될지 다운 첩첩 망보를 샤거지. 안고 망보 삼철 거 망보 요리 안 삼철 거 가래 싸움나들이 샘 망보 차로데 샘 남도 망보 요거를 봐. 드니 샘 룰루 차오르들 람상 거때 샤 양파 싸워 매와 양 싸워 요바 아니 샤거리 텔페 공고를 또 공다 저도 야보 참아 곰 올레 산이 좋게 샤큰 너가 뭐들 거쳤다. 나냥가 그 빠르 충충도 거쳐 떼요 봐. 달로 믿으면 So,
what you really have to try to do tonight as a practice to meditate is to take a small picture, if you can find one, of White Tara, and to really try again and again to visualize yourself clearly as White Tara, and to see your body, your flesh, as that of White Tara, and your mind as that of White Tara. And do this again and again until some clarity arises. This is really the essence, if you want, of what we saw today.
소업 주소는 참아 잡지더니 산지에 담지 안 가만하게 되니 접지도 못 걸는 줄더니 제마 배우더니 접지도 못 걸어 탐송서 곰다 진짜 이미 탐바르죠제
So So page 13 in Rinpoche's version, I think maybe page 13 in yours. After visualizing ourselves as White Tara, with the various characteristics of White Tara which are in your text, however large or however small, in function of one's mental capacities, then from the time in one's heart one visualizes countless rays of light which spread as far as possible in space, and they bring back various White Taras similar to ourselves, similar to the White Tara we have meditated ourselves as. And we become one with that White Tara.
산지에 담제라 담책이 우리 산지에 담책이 당보 고도 상계지 심지 담제도 산총교도 턱기는 당보 산총교도 턱기네 된 담망을 벌도 상기에 되는 고도 되나 심지 담제게 고도 깨달라 고도 남자 용거래 고도 마음으로 고도 늦게 말봐 오 고도 담책 개린 제차로 와 심지 동다는 거 소 망볼 있다는 데를 강에 망보 잡을 때 고도 상기요래 심지 뜯게 잡는 다 온가에 랍상 용거인데 제신 독지 공대 그래서 제와 제모더니 보고 깨잖아 아마 랍상 용거를 봐 랍상 용거를 빼대는 용거를
So we continue with our text. I think it may be on page 14 for you. Om, when I invite you with the force of unshakable faith, Blessed Lady Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, please come regarding me with great love and compassion. Om Ayatare Vajra Samaya Jatishtalham. So Rinpoche says that the term Samaya here, Damtsik in Tibetan, means the pledge, the promise. What pledge is this? It is the promise which all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas made in the past to fulfill the welfare of beings. So when in this line we pray to them and ask them to come to us, because of their samaya, because they have put such effort to attaining Buddhahood, they will unavoidably come to us. In the same way as a mother unavoidably goes to her little child when the child cries out to her. So we have no doubts to have when we utter these prayers, although we may not see them, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will come.
Tini to jipti duma yambala tini sobchu tisum sanje tam jipi namka kawa pepne tini ko to dime to pe me din chama yogore ta chojing dedang yi pe namka kawa yogore tini tena ga choke pe na ko ta semchi tamchi chupi lamo potang pomo zambale dimo te tamjel tonne tini te tamche ke ta chupa poro om numjori yiptor chupa zede 무슨 교와 소소가 다 가래 샤면데 무슨 교와 소소 가래 좀라 때래 이제 좀 받는 직디가 감나 요체에 되면 사제 코소 어쩔 받다고 자들 때 코소 사제를 뭐나 때 무초 빠래 되는 직디가 감나 요체 때문에 다 빼는들 사칸 룽칸 대칸 어쩔 다 가래요 총칸 가래요나 때라서 본 직디 감고 다 신령 매도 다 때라서 봐 가래요나 참아 이거 강 약보 봐 대참말로 정들이
So after inviting the field of accumulation of merit, if possible in the elaborate form which is behind Rinpoche or in a simpler form, we now make offerings to this field. These offerings are of two nature. They are real offerings, in other words, real things arrayed on the altar, and they are visualized offerings. They can be visualized objects of all three realms, which are pleasing to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas which are invited.
소속의 디 사족 첨지 니리 싸움 줘봐 대 고난이 되는 돈 담았던 게 지금 봐 원래 돈담 사족sem 돈담 사족도 사자 집은 겁나 대 고난 집들이 좀 셈다 가서 셈 집발에 돈 담배 줘봐 담배 라는 매비 줘봐 치낭 상와 돈 담배 줘봐 되는지 대 고난이 줘봐 돈 담배 줘봐라.
So we have now 4 offerings which are made to the visualized field of merit: outer, inner, secret, and the offering of suchness. The outer offering are obviously the material offerings we talked about before, which can be visualized or real. The inner offerings are the offerings which are seized or which are controlled by a self. In other words, they are parts of our body. The secret offering is, for instance, the offering of the mind of bodhicitta. And the offering of suchness is an offering of samadhi, specifically of samadhi which is placed on emptiness. So after visualizing these offerings, we should also train in visualizing that these offerings in ourselves can change size. They can become small, they can become bigger, you know. This makes the mind more flexible.
조 아이다 아이다 thank you